Vienna Calling, der Videopodcast von und mit Petra Bayr. Aktuelle Fragen der Zeit kurz und prägnant beantwortet.
Hello and good afternoon. I very much welcome Selin Sayek Böke here in Vienna Calling podcast. Selin is the Secretary General of CHB, which is the sister organization, the sister party in Turkey. And Selin, hello, it's so great. We met last week in person, I have to say, and also great to see you again on the screen. Selin, there were recently local elections in Turkey, and they went very well. We can speak about a landslide win of the leftist parties. What happened?
So first of all, let's put out the results, right? We are now the first party in Turkey. So we've become the lead, right? We were in opposition in the May elections, but now with the local elections, we have become the first party. I think this is a great calling for progressive values and a new social and economic structure in Turkey, as well as a political one. And the second thing is we are now going to govern 409 municipalities. And most critically, we're going to be governing as CHP almost 2/3 of the population and almost 3/4 of where the economic activity is in Turkey. Now, this means we're going to have a huge reach out to people. And it also means that it will allow us to serve with the principles of human rights, democracy, and rule of law at a time when in Turkey, the general authority or the government is actually putting much pressure on almost all of these directions. So I think for Turkey, this was a breather in a sense.
That's great. Can you tell us your secret? What did you do during the campaign? How did you manage? Maybe we can learn something. That would be great.
I think the basic principle we all know. This was a campaign that was run a lot where we were in touch with the people and the people's indeed sentiments, right? So after the May 2023 elections, there was a big loss of hope in Turkey. I think democratic forces were somewhat angry also about political institutions. So what we did was in the party, we had a party congress and a change of administration and leadership. I think this itself, so change was a big drive because people had lost their hope because they were unable to change politics in Turkey. And seeing that CHP accepted the need for change and actually implemented it internally was a big driving force in attaching back to the people's demands, needs, and sentiments. The second is Turkey is going through an economic crisis, and this has been going on for quite some time. In the May 2023 elections, the government had spent a lot of money on much needed social policies, but they weren't driven by the needs of the people, but rather they were driven by political incentives for the government to re-win. In these elections, the capacity was not there, hence they were unable to reach out. Whereas with our local authorities, our already governed municipalities, CHP municipalities had done a lot of good social policy work during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And I think this also meant that people called out for better social policies, rights-based driven, sustainable, not politically incentivized, but rather based on what people needed and were their rights. And the third is the government or the authorities in AKP have been running a very polarized politics in Turkey. This also has led to a lot of anger and loss of hope in Turkey. Whereas in this election, what we did was, instead of doing at the political party's headquarters level a coalition, we had a coalition at the level of the people and the streets, which meant a Turkish coalition. And this was the campaign's motto, if you wish. So I think what we're looking for as the miracle or the key to success was a lot of these components I just spoke of were touching to the sentiments of the people. So rather than speaking of what was right, we were speaking to the feelings of the people. And I think this allowed us to reach out with the progressive values a lot. We also changed how we did politics. We did a lot of monitoring and evaluation. We measured, I think we did polls that came up to close to 600,000 individuals being polled throughout the campaign. And this allowed us to monitor and move our campaign's focus at times to where we thought we should maybe intensify the campaign and where we didn't need to do more because the people had already made their decisions. So I think that was the general framework.
So in a nutshell, change, hope as messages, coalition with the people, and monitoring all over the whole campaign what works and what does not work.
Exactly. And I think this was a huge change for how we did politics, right? I think the core values that our party stands for have been there for a century with the foundation of the Turkish Republic as well. So the principles are there. It's how you reach out to the people with those principles and values, right? And we, for a long time, I think, did not do politics where we were monitoring ourselves as well, and where we focused on the people. So we had a lot of self-evaluation after the 2023 May elections, and we realized that in 2019 local elections, we had won the elections because of political party coalitions, right? And people stood with that. In 2023, people were fed up with these political alliances and coalitions being built in headquarter offices. They were demanding that the coalition was built with the people rather than among the elites of political parties. And we were very successful in conveying the message that we were ready to do coalitions with political parties, but we were more ready to lead the coalition of the people and their demands and feelings. And this, I think, the first step we took was the change in the party. So a very internal issue became a change instrument and a change agent, I think, for Turkish politics.
Okay, so the change in party we also had last year. So let's see how we can transform that into success as well. Selin, you already mentioned the national elections in 2023, and the next one I think will come
2028, if all goes as scheduled.
What does the result of the local election mean now for Turkey as a whole?
So I think, the Turkish politics has been somewhat stuck in the past decade almost, because we have become, or the government or AKP has become more authoritarian, more oppressive. Democracy has been backsliding. So giving the power to the opposition now as the main force in local authorities and municipalities will create a new checks and balances. So I think this is a breather for Turkish democracy, right? The second is, as I said, we're going through an economic crisis, and this has been ongoing for quite some time. And the government, or AKP, also accepts that we are in a crisis. They accept that there needs to be a policy change, but their policy change is towards an austerity program. Whereas through our municipalities and local authorities, we are trying to reach out to the people with our social and economic policies to indeed relieve them from this economic distress. So I think this will also be critical for Turkish politics, because it will allow us to reach out and serve to a much larger population who is currently being forgotten by the AKP government. So a checks and balances democratically, politically, as well as economically and socially, I think, is going to be the new force in Turkish politics. And this is going to be critical, I think, for the run-up to the general elections. And we realize that as much as one would call this a success on the progressive forces, we label it not as a success, but as an opportunity and responsibility, right? We realize now that indeed the people have given us a credit and are now seeking out to see if we fulfill that credit that they have opened up to us. So the motto and the main message we've been giving out to our local authorities now, as well as all of our political forces in the party, is that, yes, we were happy on the 31st, but as of the 1st of April, we stand with a huge responsibility on our shoulders to make sure that this progressive reality becomes one in the next round of elections and the general elections.
Not knowing how you really can distinguish competences between the national and the local level in Turkey, do you think it will be possible now that those who are representing your party now at the local level really can do the politics you also would strive for on a national level?
We strongly believe so, and more so, we aim to do so. So we had this past week stages of evaluation in our party organizations, right? We started out with the very executive board meetings, our party assembly meetings, where we evaluated how we're going to do politics in the next round, if you wish. And then in this past weekend, we had meetings with our MPs and with our 409 newly elected mayors, together with the heads of our chapters from the 81 provinces in Turkey. The main message there was that we're going to work together, right? Our party organizations bear the responsibility of reaching out to people and making sure that we keep the Turkish coalition, this idea that all people will feel that their needs are satisfied with the progressive politics that we put out in CHP. So we realized that not all of the voters were formerly CHP voters, but we would want our politics to change so that those who voted for CHP in these local elections become CHP voters in the next round of elections. This is our responsibility, and it bears on the shoulders of our local chapters. It bears on the shoulders of our mayors and their teammates in municipalities. It now bears on our MPs who will be, running their politics in the parliament with the responsibility of being the first party in Turkey now, as well as our executive board in making sure that we coordinate and orchestrate this very large operation of politics, if you wish, throughout Turkey. And we've identified, as you said, what were the keys. Some of the keys maybe I can relabel. We ran a very young campaign. We had a lot of young candidates who were not just candidates, but became mayors. I think this was critical. So we didn't just show them as candidates. We had them in places where they would be elected. We have, tripled almost our women mayors. So we have a lot of women who are now very active, and they're going to be running very large municipalities in Turkey. So they weren't just candidates in areas that we thought were not critical, but we had candidates who were elected as mayors, woman candidates. So young woman, and also, as I said, the key was monitoring and evaluating, not fearing to question yourself. I think that was critical.
Mm-hmm. Selin, the last time when you were in Vienna, more than a year ago, we also spoke about how we could cooperate between CHP and SPÖ. Now, as you are so enthusiastic about the new drive, any new thoughts about that? Any new ideas?
I think what we've learned from this round of elections and the change is that these are universal values we've run this campaign on, and progressives actually should be able to show solidarity in building up this world, right? I think the far right, the more authoritarian reflexes in politics, show solidarity among themselves much more than the progressives do. So I think the message is change should also come in how we progressives throughout the world maybe bring together our forces and make sure that the change that we're experiencing now, or the reach out to the public with sentiments, the reach out to public by saying, they polarize, we bring together. We realize that we might be different, but we also know that we're equal. So I think this experience will only be stronger if we put up a very, strong solidarity in progressive forces across our larger European geography in saying, there are a lot of Turkish origin citizens across all parts of Europe. So, we're ready to reach out to them and say, what we have done in Turkey should and could be done in our larger geography of Europe. So I think cross-party solidarity and pushing for the same values is going to be critical to make sure that we have a win in the European Parliament as well, as progressives.
As well. Absolutely, you're right. Selin, I'm very much looking forward for any further cooperations, which we will have for sure. And it was my absolute pleasure to talk today with Selin Sayek Böke from Ankara.
Yes.
I assume you
Yes,
are at
I'm
the
in
moment.
Ankara.
So thank you very much for your time. All the best, and see
Thank
you
you,
soon
Petra, as
again.
always. See you soon.